I like learning. I really like science. I bought some science lectures on DVD, and I have an astronomy series that I was learning from. And I learned that out there in space, with all of their telescopes and sophisticated equipment, and even telescopes on satellites so they can see even further, they have discovered that everything that they can see and come up with what it is only 25% of what is out there. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff they have no way to detect what it is. And so the question is, well, how do you know it's there if you have no way to detect it? There's 75% of space full of stuff that they don't have a name for it, don't know what it is, but they say it's there. They know it's there because they can detect its influence on everything else that they can see. So when they do all their calculations and run their numbers and formulas, with the 25% that they can measure and calculate on, the numbers don't add up. So they're saying there's something else out there that factors into the equation, and we don't know what it is. So they just call it dark matter and dark energy, because right now they have no way of detecting what it is to come up with what that is. So my theory is, and this is my personal theory, that the space that we're in right here is the same way. Look around you. Everything that you can detect physically through all of your senses makes up 25% of the world that you're in. There's a whole bunch of other stuff out there that is influencing the 25% that you can see. How do we know that it's there? Because it has an influence on what you can detect with your senses. And so out there in space, this term dark matter, dark energy, it doesn't really mean that there's anything bad about it. It's just because they can't detect it. But in the space, for us right here, when I'm going to refer to dark energy, it is dark. It is negative. It is painful. That's the influences that just drive us crazy, right? So sometimes we struggle in life, right? Anybody had any struggles? Sometimes we don't even know how much we're struggling. My brother called me up one day and he says, "We haven't talked for a while. How's everything going?" And so I was telling him, and after a few minutes he says, "Geez, you sound depressed." And that annoyed me. Like, you asked the question, I was just answering you. What is that supposed to mean? I sound depressed. And I wasn't very happy with him for saying that. I don't know, it bugged me. Another time I was having a conversation with my sister, and she said, "Well, maybe you have some depression." Now, I never even connected those two conversations till years later. But that annoyed me too, because depression, that's for wimps. Now, I'm sorry, look, that's where I was at that time, okay? She was saying maybe I have depression. That's mental illness. To me, that's just all in your head. That's not real, right? Like stuff in your head isn't real. But that's where I was at the time. That's not what I think now, because I've had some real experience. I was never really social or outgoing. That wasn't my personality. And as I was struggling with some things in life, it got even worse. I got to the point where I never wanted to be around anyone, anytime, for any reason. I didn't like running into people downtown. I especially was really not even wanting to be in church because I had to be fake. And that really is against my core values. I hate being fake. And I was in a place where Well, you know how it is. It's just, it's the social ethics we have, right? So I was finding myself having to all the time run into somebody and have to smile and say, oh, fine, thank you, and how are you? And I hated that because it was fake. I didn't feel like smiling, I wasn't fine, and I was too miserable to care about how you were doing. I found an article that really got my interest, and I was reading, and this woman was describing my life. Holy cow, she nailed it. How did she know? She mentioned things about her struggles and her challenges and the way family was. It's like, I couldn't have described my life better than what she just did in this article. Wow, that is amazing. And I was really into this article. I was really eager to hear what else she had to say because it sounded like she was talking about me. And towards the end of the article, she says, and I was diagnosed with clinical depression. And I said, stupid article. But I had already admitted something to myself. So I ended up having a conversation with my church leader. And I said, yeah, there is nothing going right in my life. I can't think straight. Every decision I make seems to be the wrong one. My kids hate me. My wife is the only good thing I have. He said, let's get you some help before you don't have that. He says, I've been talking to your wife, and you don't realize how hard your challenge is for her. And so I got some help, got rid of every responsibility that didn't include breathing and eating and just barely living. Get on the medication, you do everything you can, and things got better. Everything except what was going on between me and her. I don't know how it happened. As I got everything else to improve in life, I started realizing that it wasn't good between us. So I went from she was the only good thing in my life to now she was the thing that was causing me the misery. I remember one day, it was just out of the blue. She said, Andy, are you happy? And you know, have you ever clicked on the computer and you get the little spinny thing? And it spins, and it spins, and it spins. And it's like, come on, move it. And it spins. When she asked me that question, that's what my brain started doing. It just froze and spun, and I'm thinking, happy? Am I happy? What does that have to do with anything? What does that mean? And I didn't know how to find words to answer her question. Why are you even asking me that? What is that all about? Am I happy? I couldn't find anything to help answer that question. And finally, after, I think 5 minutes, I stared at her, I stared out the window, I just went back and forth like, I'm lost. I don't even know how to begin with that. Am I happy? And so I just finally said, well, I guess not, since I don't know how to answer that. I don't even know what you mean by that. It had been so long since I'd felt anything good. And so somehow I went from making everything else in life seem to be getting better, but how I felt about my wife was going the exact opposite direction. We had done business together for years, and she became just like a coworker. There was no affection, no romantic feelings. And one day I realized the reason for my feelings going that way is because she really didn't love me. And my mind got flashed back to, see, even in high school, remember when you were dating? There was this and there was that. You always loved her more than what she seemed to love me. And that's still true. And so as I began to think about this, it made more and more sense. So what I'm about to describe, just know it's where I was at the time. I am not describing her. I am describing what was happening to me. And so I would see things. She would do things. She would say things, and it would click in my brain. See, there's proof. She doesn't really love you. And so I thought about having this conversation because, you know, you're supposed to talk things out, right? Work out your challenges. And when I thought about having this conversation with her, it's like this ice filled my chest. And it's like, you can't do that. Because she doesn't even know it. So what? She doesn't love me and she doesn't know she doesn't love me? Well, see, we've been together for 20 plus years as married couples, not even counting our relationship before marriage. So we've been together for a long time. But I couldn't talk to her about it because the surface marriage that we had, it looked good, it sounded good. She was never mean or nasty or rude to me in any way. But there were things that just kind of slip out. She'd just comment or just do that were indications to me that deep down inside, in her subconscious, on a deep level, she didn't really love me, and we were just a thing, and we had built this life together, and we were just kind of going through these motions, and it seemed to be good. But suddenly I thought I was discovering what was really under the surface, that my wife didn't love me. And every few months, there would be something that she would do or that she would say, and my mind would go, see, there it is. That is an indication that deep inside, she doesn't really care. And the more I believed that, the more things started showing up. And every 2 or 3 months turned to every 2 or 3 weeks, I would get something that was an indication that my wife didn't care about me. And then it went to every 2 or 3 days. And then it was something every day. And I kept doing my job. I thought, okay, I can't talk to her about it because if I let her know, hey, I've noticed that this, and this, and that means at a subconscious level, deep down inside, you really don't care about me. If I told her that, one of her greatest strengths is once you get an idea, you act on it. Well, so to me, the quickest, surest way to end my marriage was to talk to her about it. So I was convinced that somehow I would figure this out by myself because I couldn't talk to anyone else because it would get back to her somehow. And so year after year, month after month, and daily, I would get these indications of how true that was. And I couldn't talk. I couldn't let on that I was being bothered by what she says and what she does. I couldn't let on that there was anything wrong at all because as soon as I gave some kind of signal, we would have a conversation. Now, we didn't argue, we didn't fight, but somehow inside of me, I was just rotting and our relationship was becoming nothing. And I just had to, on the surface, smile and say, okay, yep, we're married and we love each other, but I know she doesn't. And I don't know what to do about it. So I kept quiet and made no progress on my own how to figure this out. And every time I got a clue that what she just said, what she just did, proves how much she doesn't really care about you, I would just stuff it down. And it got to the point where I'm just gagging on it. It's like, I feel like I'm going to explode. And one night, I don't remember, she said or did something, and again, in my mind, I had some sarcastic comeback, you know how people are. Only when I thought it, I realized that my ears, that I heard it. I heard that thought out of my voice. I went, oh crap. I just let on. I just opened this can of worms. She heard me, and at that moment, I remember I looked at her thinking, did I just say that out loud? And I looked at her, and it's like, for that second, time froze. And I'm looking at her, and she's looking at me, and I knew that I had just ended my marriage. Because now we're going to have to talk about what I just said. And that's going to lead to, oh yeah, you know what? You're right. Deep down, I don't have those feelings for you. Divorce. It felt like the earth just dropped out from under my feet. And honestly, I just kind of panicked. I think this is where you kind of tell a little bit of her perspective.
I get 5 minutes. So we had this little fight one night, but he doesn't call it a fight, because fight is what he did with his brother when they were little, and they'd put on the boxing gloves and they would fight, right? So between husband and wife, it's an argument. I don't know what we were arguing about, but he just said to me, you never wanted to be with me anyway. And he proceeded to break down in tears, and he walked out the front door. And I'm like, no idea what's going on. And a few moments later, he comes back in the door, says, sorry kids, I didn't mean to ruin your lives. And I gotta admit, I thought, wow, did he have an affair? Like, how can you ruin your family's lives? What's going on? I had no idea. So that was my first thought. And then I immediately went to, what have I done wrong? What am I missing? What did I not do that it looks like our marriage is over? I didn't understand what was going on. And if you're taking notes, you want to take a note on this. There's 2 questions to get out of our minds. They're very, very dangerous. The first one is, what is wrong with me? That's why we had you make a list today of who really are you? Who truly are you? Because when our brain says, what's wrong with me? Our brain's going to find evidence of what is wrong with ourselves. Second question, what is wrong with him or them, the other person? Like he said, the brain's real smart. It's going to find evidence to back that up. Get those questions out of your mind. It was very dangerous for us at this time. So first I'm thinking, what is wrong with him? Did he just have an affair? What's going on? And what is wrong with me? What am I missing? Why does it look like my husband just walked out the door having a breakdown, literally in tears, and I don't know if he's going to come back, and if he comes back, are we going to be divorced? Is our marriage over? He shared with you about his depression, and there was points in our life when it was really serious. So when you see your husband break down, walk out the door, I went and got the car. It was wintertime, and I wanted to make sure he was safe, because people with depression often have thoughts that are not very good, as me and my friend Julie were talking about before we started today. It's very serious. So I followed him around a few blocks. I don't know if he knew I was following him, but then he disappeared. So that's kind of where I'm at. My husband just walked out the door, and I'm not sure if our marriage is going to continue on.